I should have burned the notes. I should have smashed the camera, deleted the files, and pretended none of it ever happened. But instead I kept them. And because I kept them, I still see the shapes at the corners of my vision. I still hear the heartbeat in the walls when the house is quiet. This all started with my thesis project. I was a geology student in South America, working with a small university team to document cave systems in the Andes. Most of it was routine, cataloging mineral deposits, mapping unexplored chambers, trying to get published. One morning, a local shepherd told me about a cave he swore nobody went near. He called it La Boca del Diablo, the devil's mouth. He said the animals wouldn't graze near it. And when storms came, the ground there shook like it was alive. Naturally, I went. The entrance was a slit in the rock hidden behind brush, barely wide enough to squeeze through. Inside, the air was stale, dead, like it hadn't been disturbed in centuries. My lamp cut across smooth walls, perfectly curved, too symmetrical for natural erosion. At first, I thought it was an abandoned mine, but the deeper I went, the clearer it became. No tools had shaped this. It was something else, something older. I followed the passage down into a massive chamber. That's when I found the first doorway. It wasn't a doorway in the normal sense, no hinges, no wood, no stone arch. It was a structure built from bones, human bones, femurs, ribs, skulls stacked with impossible precision, forming an arch tall enough for 3 men to walk through. I nearly vomited, but curiosity won. I stepped through. On the other side, there were more doorways, dozens, each built the same way, each leading deeper into the cave. Some were small, some huge. Some decorated with carvings, spirals, symbols I didn't recognize. But they all led onward. I don't know why I kept going. Maybe I felt like I had to, like the cave wanted me to. Every step echoed too loud. The air grew colder, thicker, as if it had weight. My lamp flickered, batteries draining faster than they should, and then I started to hear it. The heartbeat. It wasn't mine. It came from the walls, slow, steady, pulsing through the stone. I pressed my hand to the surface, and I swear it throbbed beneath my palm. That's when I saw the remains, not scattered bones this time. Entire bodies petrified, frozen in the rock. Men, women, children, faces twisted mid-scream, hands reaching out as if clawing to escape. Their mouths were open, wide, too wide. I should have turned back. God knows I should have. But instead, I filmed everything, documented it like some idiot academic chasing discovery. I followed the heartbeats through another bone arch, then another, and another, until I reached the final chamber. It was vast, hollow, shaped like a sphere. The ceiling vanished into blackness. The walls were smooth, polished, and covered in carvings, thousands of them. At the center was a pool, perfectly round, perfectly still. When I shined my light on it, it didn't reflect me. It reflected something else. At first, I thought it was a trick. The image was clearer than a mirror, but it wasn't me. It was a figure standing where I stood, pale, thin, eyes sunken, lips pulled back into a grin that showed too many teeth. And behind it, more figures, dozens, hundreds, all watching. When I moved, it didn't. It only leaned closer. I don't remember running. 1 second I was staring into that pool. The next I was clawing through bone arches, slamming my shoulders into stone, desperate to escape. The heartbeat grew louder, faster, shaking the walls. Dust rained from the ceiling. At one point, the arches began to collapse behind me, skulls tumbling, ribs snapping. But I kept moving. When I burst back into daylight, I collapsed, gasping, my skin ice cold, my mind buzzing. The cave was silent, almost like it had let me go. But it didn't let me go. Not really, because when I checked my footage later, it wasn't right. I watched myself walk into the cave, set up the camera, speak to the lens. That part was fine. But when I reached the first bone doorway, there was someone else with me, a second figure, always just behind me, sometimes a hand on my shoulder, sometimes standing in the doorway as I passed through. And when I got to the pool, the footage cut. Not black, not static, just my own face, staring at the camera, smiling. I don't go into caves anymore. I don't go near the mountains. But sometimes when I'm alone, mirrors don't show my reflection. They show the grin and the shape standing behind me. I'm writing this now because the nightmares won't stop. Maybe if I put it into words, I can finally rest. But I doubt it. Some things get inside you so deep, no amount of telling can pull them out. I was part of a rescue team in Wales about 6 years ago. We were volunteers mostly, experienced cavers with training in rope work and first aid. Our job was to respond when the weekend adventurers pushed too far into the labyrinth and didn't come back. Usually it was straightforward. Someone got wedged in a crawl or sprained an ankle or their light died. You bring them out, everyone's a hero, end of story. But not this time. This time, there were 3 missing. 2 students and a guide. They'd gone down into a system called Dinas Modwi, one of those half-mapped caves where the charts don't match the reality. Locals don't like going near it. Too many dead ends, too many accidents. We went in as a 4-person team. Myself, a woman named Kate, and 2 brothers, Sean and Martin. We were close, experienced, careful. But what we found in there, it was wrong. It was impossible. The entrance tunnel was narrow but easy enough. Muddy crawl, low ceiling. After about half an hour, it widened into a chamber. That's where we found the first sign. Rope, not the student's rope. This one was ancient, frayed hemp, black with age, trailing into a fissure. None of us touched it. Sean muttered something about miners, but even he didn't sound convinced. We pressed on. The second sign came an hour later. A boot. Torn, waterlogged, stuffed into a crack in the wall. But it wasn't one of the students' boots. It was older, leather, the kind you'd see in a museum. We started to feel uneasy, like we weren't the first people to get lost down there, like maybe nobody had ever really come back. 2 hours in, we heard the voices. It started faint, like a conversation carried through water. Kate froze, her light jerking. Did you hear that? We killed our lamps, sat in darkness, and there it was, dozens of voices, whispering, laughing, muttering. Some close, some impossibly far, all of them overlapping, out of sync like a chorus with no conductor. But there was no one there. Air currents, Martin said, though his voice shook. Echoes from the surface. We all nodded, pretended to believe it, and kept moving, but deep down I knew. Those weren't echoes. They were imitations of us. The cave twisted, turned, doubled back. Our map stopped making sense. Every passage looked the same. Slick limestone, jagged cracks, water dripping somewhere unseen. And then we found the carvings, dozens of them, etched into the walls. Not with tools, but with fingernails. You could see the scratches, the desperate gouges, faces over and over, hollow-eyed screaming faces. I felt bile rise in my throat. Kate swore under her breath. That's when the voices came again. But this time they weren't whispering. They were calling our names. I don't remember how long we stumbled in that maze. Minutes, hours, time stopped meaning anything. My lamp flickered, batteries draining twice as fast as they should have. Sean swore his compass spun like mad, and always the voices followed. Sometimes ahead, sometimes behind. Always just out of reach. At one point, we heard Martin shouting from a side tunnel. We spun, but Martin was right beside us. His face went white. "That's me," he whispered. The voice came again. His voice. His exact voice. Calling for help. Begging us to follow. We didn't, but Sean did. He broke off, scrambling toward the sound before we could stop him. His lamp vanished into the dark. We chased him, screaming, but the tunnel branched and branched again, splitting into impossible paths. We found one of his gloves, soaked in mud. That was all. Sean was gone. Kate wanted to turn back. I agreed, but Martin refused. He was pale, shaking, eyes hollow, but he wouldn't stop. "We have to get them," he muttered. "We can't leave them." But the deeper we went, the more wrong it got. The tunnels began to change. Narrow 1 minute, wide the next. Passages looping into themselves, stone shifting like a living thing. I swear to God we passed the same chamber 3 times, the same cairn of rocks, the same boot in the wall, except each time the boot was newer. By the 3rd time it was modern, a hiking boot, and it was still warm. That's when we saw them, not the students, not Sean's shadows, dozens of them, flickering just at the edge of our lights. Human shapes, but wrong, too tall, too thin. Joints bending where they shouldn't. Every time we swung the lamps toward them, they vanished. Every time we looked away, they crept closer. The voices rose, louder, clearer, no longer echoes, and they were speaking in our voices, mine, Kate's, Martin's, every scream, every gasp repeated in perfect unison a split second after we made them. I don't know how we made it out. The last thing I remember is running. clawing through mud, lungs burning, heart hammering. Kate was right behind me. I swear she was. But when I burst into daylight, she wasn't there. Neither was Martin. The surface team found me half-conscious at the entrance, hypothermic, covered in scratches. They asked me where the others were. I told them the truth. The cave kept them. They never found the students. Or Sean, or Kate, or Martin. And sometimes when the world goes quiet, I still hear them calling my name, in my own voice, from inside the stone. I don't know if anyone will believe me. Honestly, sometimes I don't believe myself. But whenever I close my eyes at night, I can still hear the sound of stone shifting against stone. It wasn't an earthquake. It wasn't natural erosion. It was something alive, and it wanted us inside. It was 2 summers ago up in Alaska. My friend Mark and I were hiking near the Wrangell Mountains, one of those stretches of wilderness where you can walk for days and not see another soul. We weren't professionals, just guys who craved adventure. He had his camera, I had my cheap climbing gear, and we figured if we stuck close to the ridges, we'd be fine. That's when we saw it. A sinkhole, maybe 20 feet wide, yawning in the snowmelt valley. From above, it looked like a mouth cracked open in the earth. The edges were rimmed with fresh ice, dripping, steaming in the warm air. At first, we thought it was just another glacial collapse. But when I peered down with my headlamp, I saw it wasn't just a pit. It was a tunnel, and painted on the stone walls, barely visible through centuries of soot and dust, were crude markings. Mark got excited immediately. "Cave art," he whispered. "This is insane, dude." Nobody's documented this, I wasn't so sure. Something about the markings felt wrong. They weren't faded the way I expected from something that had been buried for centuries. They looked fresh, almost glossy. Still, we had gear. Ropes, harnesses, lamps. And our curiosity was stronger than our common sense. So we went down. The descent was slow. The shaft was slick with meltwater, the rope constantly swinging into jagged stone. The further we went, the colder it got. By the time we hit the bottom, our breath was misting in front of our faces and the air smelled metallic like blood or rust. The chamber opened into a corridor. It wasn't natural, and at least not entirely. The stone was too smooth, too deliberate, like something had carved it. And then came the sound. At first, it was so faint I thought it was water dripping. But it wasn't. It was a low vibration, a sort of rumble that traveled through the stone, almost like breathing. Mark brushed it off. Seismic activity. Maybe a hot spring nearby, but I knew better. I could feel it under my boots. The ground wasn't just shaking. It was pulsing. We pushed deeper. The walls were covered in more markings, spirals, crude faces with hollow eyes, symbols neither of us could place. Some of the paint looked wet, though there was no sign of moisture anywhere else. And then we found the chamber. It was massive, like stepping into the belly of a cathedral. The ceiling vanished into blackness, our lamps barely catching the tops of stalactites. The floor sloped into a pit at the center, and around that pit were dozens of stones stacked like cairns. Each one was shaped like a figure. A body, arms, legs, head. Not carved exactly, but arranged. Bones of rock. I felt my stomach tighten. "We shouldn't be here." Mark just laughed. "This is history, man. Imagine what we can publish." He started snapping pictures. I stood still, lamp shaking in my hands. Because I could hear it again, the rumble. Louder this time. The stones vibrated. The walls creaked. And then the floor shifted. It wasn't dramatic, not like a cave-in. It was subtle. Like the entire room tilted a few inches to the left. But it was enough to send rocks tumbling, our equipment rattling. I nearly lost my footing. Mark did too, and his flashlight beam shot across the chamber. For just a second, I swore I saw something. A figure crouched at the edge of the pit. Pale skin, 2 long limbs watching us. When the light swung back, it was gone. "Did you see that?" I whispered. "See what?" He said, annoyed. My mouth went dry. "Nothing." But it wasn't nothing. We decided to climb back. At least I did. Mark wanted to press on, explore deeper tunnels branching off the chamber. He was always like that, reckless, chasing the thrill. "Fine," I said. 10 minutes. No more. We took one of the side tunnels. It was narrow, jagged, forcing us to crawl on hands and knees. The air got heavier, damper. My lamp flickered, the beam bouncing against slick walls. And then we heard it, a scrape, like stone grinding against stone, somewhere ahead. "Hello?" Mark called, as if expecting someone to answer. His voice echoed, warped, but no one answered. The tunnel opened into a smaller chamber. and that's when we saw the paintings again. But these weren't crude figures. These were detailed. Rows of people kneeling before something massive. A shape with many arms, eyes painted in spirals, teeth jagged like stone shards, and all of them facing downward toward a hole in the chamber floor. Mark leaned over it, flashlight cutting into the blackness. "It's bottomless," he said. His voice trembled with awe. I wanted to leave. Every part of me screamed at me to leave. But before I could say anything, the ground shuddered. Harder this time. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the hole below us widened, not cracked, not eroded, widened like a mouth stretching open. "Run," I said. But Mark didn't. He was staring at something. I grabbed his shoulder and he turned. His eyes were wide, his face pale. "It moved," he whispered. "The mountain. It moved." We bolted, crawling back through the tunnel, scraping our hands raw, gear clattering behind us. The rumble followed, louder, angrier. The walls pressed tighter, squeezing, like the cave itself was trying to hold us in. By the time we reached the main chamber, half the cairn-like figures had toppled. The pit at the center had widened, and from the depths a sound rose, not rumbling, not scraping. A voice, low, guttural, speaking words I couldn't understand. Mark stopped to listen. I dragged him by the arm, screaming. We reached the shaft, clipped into the rope, and started climbing. My arms burned, my lungs screamed, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. Halfway up, I looked down. The chamber wasn't below us anymore, it was closer. The shaft itself had shortened, stone folding upward, the mountain rearranging itself to pull us back down. "Go. Go!" I shouted. Mark didn't make it. The rope jerked, pulled taut. I looked down just in time to see him vanish into the stone, as if the wall itself had swallowed him whole, and then silence. I don't know how I made it out. I remember clawing through ice, dragging myself into daylight, snow stinging my face. When I turned back, the sinkhole was gone. Just solid earth. No sign it had ever been there. I stumbled back to camp, half frozen, half mad. I tried to report it. Nobody believed me. They searched. They found nothing, but sometimes when I'm alone in bed, I hear it. That low vibration, that scrape of stone on stone, and I know Mark is still down there. Because mountains don't just move, they feed.